1 year me and the heroes have yet to be summoned. Toomey is puzzled by this intricate twist, and when he persists with his beag of questions she curtly tells him that time is up before he can continue. Lady Nolan strikes him and he loses consciousness. Awakening later in the real world, he reflects that she must have been evading his inquiries, but he shrugs it off as he has no real desire to meet these heroes anyway. The narrative then jumps forward 10 months into the future. Within the Holy Empire of Sidonia, there Akar is shown training diligently with his sword, having honed his skills considerably, while Aony and Yamato watch his progress with admiration. Back to the present, and we see Takumi presenting the new cloaks to the girl. Maple immediately notices that the cloaks perfectly complement his attire, while Sophia initially remarks that the matching ensemble is a bit too bold, so Toomey wonders if perhaps she dislikes the look. However, Sophia quickly assures him that she loves it, much to his relief and delight. Later we learned that Toomey plans to build his own carriage rather than borrowing one from the guild, aiming for greater comfort. He explains that although he can construct a carriage, a lack in monster horse, SOI initially considers borrowing one from the guild. However, Maria steps in and reminds him that this town is known as the City of Adventurers for a reason. She recalls the perils of the Forest of Death and warns him that many dangerous areas with lurking monsters exist. In her view, there are not only monster horses but also unicorns and drake horses, creatures that are both faster and sturdier. The scene then shifts to the forest surrounding the city, where Toomey ponders whether drake horses are truly swifter than monster horses. Sophia confirms that they are, and even add that they possess superior stamina. Curious, Toomey asks if the speed is due to their being of a dragon type, to which Maria clarifies that while they aren't actually dragons, they do resemble normal horses, except they sport a horn and are covered in scales reminiscent of a dragon's hide. Realizing this is the origin of their name, Toomey nods in understanding, and Maple becomes excited at the thought of finally having a monster friend. Suddenly Toomey and the others encounter a bush wolf that dashes right past them. Sophia looks puzzled, and Toomey attributes the wolf's failure to detect them to the effectiveness of their new cloaks, while he praises the cloaks for keeping them. Sophia removes hers, arguing that they need to engage in combat to train and strengthen themselves. The narrative then transitions to we've seen of Sophia defeating a boar, prompting Maria to remark that they've now got extra meat. Maple urges them to hurry up, and Toomey soon spots the fallen TR. Recognizing its value, he decides to salvage it for its wood, which he intends to use in building the carriage, especially since he had been considering buying some from Peck. Despite Maple's impatient protests for the misbeat things along, Toomey and the others set about chopping up the meat and collecting the wood. Irritated, Maple storms off on her own, dashing through the forest and noting the numerous dead trains scattered about. As she ventures further, she senses something ahead and soon discovers an injured drake horse. The creature throws his magic at her, but she definitely dodges the attack, a move that reminds her of the time when she was injured and Toomey had helped her. In that moment she tells the drake horse that her master is truly exceptional at healing, but just then two giant ants begin to approach them. Maple notices that the giant ants are the very threat afflicting the drake horse, and she swiftly binds them using her finely spun threads, allowing the drake horse to finish off them. Just as she prepares to leave and summon her master, she suddenly finds herself encircled by a swarm of even larger ants. Desperate, she weaves several layers of her threads into a protective barrier, but the relentless ants begin tearing it apart. Frantically, Maple attempts to reach her master via telepathy, yet no response comes, so she wonders if he's too occupied with chopping wood to notice her distress, and as her concern grows, the drake horse collapses from its injuries. As the ants continue to dismantle her barrier, Maple breaks down in tears, lamenting her master's absence. Just then the ants finally tear the barrier apart, and Maple instinctively tries to shield the drake horse with her own body, and at that crucial instant she feels a gentle hand on her head and realizes that her master has arrived. It turns out that the rest of the group has managed to eliminate the invading ants. Maple, still shaken, asked Takumi where he had been, as she had been desperately calling out his name, so he apologized Izesh and explains that her threads had interfered with their telepathic link, but he sensed something was awry when their mana connection dropped, so he followed the trail that she left. He offers a sincere apology for his tardiness, and Maria points out the injured drake horse. Takumi examines the creature and sees that it has lost consciousness from its wounds, so Maple pleads with him to save the horse. Recognizing that Maple had been trying to protect the animal, Toomey attempts to cast a healing spell on the drake horse, only to be repelled by its instinctive weariness of humans even in its UNC conscious state. Realizing that the drake horse's condition might be fatal if things continue as they are, and with Sophia alert alerting them to the approach of additional monsters. Toomey has no choice but to retreat both Maple and the horse into his pocket dimension for safety. After he does, Sophia urgently warns him that housing an advanced monster in his pocket dimension without a familiar contract might cause him severe strain. Toomey assures her that he'll be fine, but then when he feels tired he quickly tries to gulp down a potion to bolster himself, but before he can drink it he collapses from exhaustion. Later we see Takumi slunt in his room fast asleep with the girls quietly keeping vigil by his side because he's been out for over 12 hours. Sophia remarks to Maria that Takumi won't wake until he successfully stabilized his pocket dimension, while Maria wonders why Maple hasn't emerged yet, so Sophia speculates that the Drake horse remains terrified, and as long as Maple keeps the creature confined in the pocket dimension it will continue to spook it, causing Toomey to slowly wither away. Convinced that something must be done, Sophia kisses his hand and follows his mana's signature. Eventually finding Maple, she inquires about the Drake horse's condition, and Maple confirms that it's still trembling. In fear, Sophia suggests she might be able to coax the Drake horse out, but cautions that releasing it into an unfamiliar area could confuse the animal. She points out that unless the creature comes out it won't receive any healing and Toomey will remain unconscious. To solve the problem, Sophia proposes that Maple recreate the barrier she had previously woven in the forest. Such a shield would conceal the true location of the Drake horse. Maple agrees, then steps into the garden with the Drake horse to form a new protective barrier. Meanwhile, Sophia intends to visit Peck Company to acquire some monster medicine, but Maria volunteers to go instead, urging Sophia to stay close to their master. The scene then shifts to Sophia watching over Toomey as he sleeps in his dreams. Toomey relives moments spent with everyone until eventually he stirs awake. Opening his eyes he notices Sophia still sleeping by his bedside, and when she eventually wakes she beams at the sight of her and he thanks her warmly for watching over him. He mentions that he needs to check on the Drake horse and steps inside Maple's barrier, noticing that the creature seems to have recovered a bit. Toomey asks if it might become a friend as well, given that it's already grown close to Maple. He uses his magic to gently tame the Drake horse and succeeds. Following this, Toomey casts a powerful healing spell to restore the creature's health, and Maple dispels the barrier around it. Toomey announces that they have gained a new companion, prompting Maple to ask what name they should give her. Inspired, Toomey decides to name the Drake horse Chamelia, after a leaf-bearing tree that retains its foliage year-round and blossoms with red and white flowers. The girls all agree that it's a lovely name, and Maria suggests they all sit down to eat, announcing that she has just finished preparing dinner. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the